And didn't do. All right, guys, welcome back to the Final YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about, give a little quick recap to this card, the past UFC Fight Night card that was this past weekend, Saturday, May 31st or whatever, maybe June 1st. I forgot. Yep, it says right there, May 31st. Yeah, so just a quick, because I don't want to discuss the Blanchfield Barber fight at the end. I'll just get out of the way now. Of course, the main event was supposed to be Aaron Blanchfield versus Macy Barber. Obviously, it shows it right there. Blanchfield was ranked number third in the women's flyweight division. Macy Barber was ranked fourth. I believe Blanchfield was coming off of the win. I think she had a win over Rose Namajunas. Let me just go check. Yeah. So she was coming off her win over Rose Namajunas. What's going on here? Sorry, hold on. All right, we're good. What's going on with this damn thing? Yeah, but we're Okay, yeah. Here, sorry, I was having issues getting pulling up the fight, pull up the fighter profile. Yeah, so I think she was coming off her win over Rose Namajunas, and yeah, and she had lost to Manon Fiorot, who had who just fought Valentina Shevchenko for the world title at UFC 315. I believe Macy Barber was coming off of her fight. What's going on right now? Let's see. Yeah, so she was coming off of her fight, I believe, against. I forgot who she fought, honestly. Let's see. Yeah, so she was supposed to fight Rose. That got canceled. Her last fight was against Caitlin Sermonaro, who I think used to be known as Caitlin Jakogian. And she had a big one. I think her biggest one came in 2023 over Amanda Ribas. That was her. That was her. Her kind of signature win. I remember when she beat Miranda Maverick. Me and Isaiah, we both picked Maverick, and we're like, yeah, she's just been a beater. Barbara's too young, and Miranda Maverick's pretty. She's pretty. She's pretty. She's actually confirmed to fight Rose. I think. I'm pretty sure that's the fight she's is confirmed to fight. But yeah, so I'm going into this fight. You had two young women who are both pretty young. I think Blanche was 25, Barbara's 26. Um, and it was supposed to be sort of a battle of the prospects that that you find in combat sports and these type of fights. And I'll go over the card in a second, but give some backstory. Macy Barber has had a bunch of injuries. That's why her that's why her fight with Rose was scheduled for 2024, got canceled. She hasn't fought in 2 years, pretty much, or I think a year and a half or whatever. Why is this? These frames, man, my FPS is not doing that good right now. Let's turn it down. Maybe that'll help. All right. Yeah. I think that actually helped a lot. Okay, we're good. So yeah. So she hasn't fought in a year and a half, or hadn't fought in a year and a half, and she had a bunch of injuries, and she was very open about those injuries too. Aaron Blanchfield herself was was trying to similarly more active, and so this fight was scheduled. And as I said, Macy was very she was very open about the injuries, and she missed weight, I think by a pound and a half, maybe just a pound. And it's funny, well, not funny, but it's a little weird and ironic that Marion Blanchfield had said, she might not even make it to the fight. And fast forward to fight night, it was kind of funny because they played if anyone was like me watching the event live, and it was kind of funny because I ordered a bunch of KFC, and so I went downstairs to grab it. I came back up, and as I'm putting on the table, I'm hearing the promo, and I'm I open it up. I grab it. They have those nice biscuits, and I bite that biscuit. Nice and buttery, was good. And I turn around, and I hear Brendan Fitzgerald go, "All right," so and he's like, "What?" And it was weird because they did the promo, and then it's like, and then the UFC was like, "All right, we don't know what's gonna happen, so we're just gonna have Brendan Fitzgerald say, hey guys, she's not fighting right now." And I was like, "What?" I was so confused. And I was like, she's not gonna fight. And then like I think a couple minutes later it was confirmed that she was not fighting that night. So literally right before they both walked, and Aaron Blanchfield was literally, I think she was at the doors ready to walk out, and then all of a sudden like she went back to the locker room, and then her camel came in, and she was like, oh boy, and then that's it. Fight was scrapped literally minutes before they were supposed to fight. So from the evidence that we have, I'm not going to speculate massively on the injuries and the controversy. I'm just going to state from what I know is that there's a lot of evidence that Macy Barber had some seizures backstage. Now apparently these seizures started 30 minutes before the fight, and by the time of the actual fight, she was stable, but the doctors were like, "Well, you just had a seizure, so you're not gonna fight." Uh, then apparently she had one like minutes later. That's what's been reported. I don't know full details. You guys can go look up the information yourselves, but you know, fact of the story is she had seizures, and obviously, if you have seizures, there's been all these memes online of Will Evers from Stranger Things, the character, and it's just him spazzing out as the mind flare hits him, and everyone's just been putting memes, and it's like Macy Barber before she fights. Like, come on, guys, that's just too. I see those. I'll let you guys in on a secret. Every day, Isaiah sends me like 15 Instagram reels, and I send him a bunch back. But like, if there was a ratio, it's like 15 to 6. I'll send him like 4 or 5 a day, maybe 6, 7. He sends me at least at like if there's a day where he sends me 4 or 5, I'm worried. I'm like, bro, you good? Is everything all right? So he sent me a bunch of those. It was like, come on, guys, but it was pretty funny. So the fight was scrapped, and of course, Erin Blanchfield is disappointed. She did a a post fight interview with Megan O'Leary, where you could just tell she was kind of like she was not still in shock. She was completely in shock. She was like, yeah, they told me, I guess somehow she was totally like, she was stunned. She was about to walk out. She was getting all juice for the fight, and then, it's over. I've been there. One of my amateur fights, I think my fourth amateur fight, um, it wasn't like, well, it was in a similar way. It wasn't at like, it was at not like inside gym area. It wasn't like the Apex with this like actual fans and stuff, but there was like enclosed area, and I was about to walk out, and it was it was a different situation. My opponent just didn't show up. Well, he showed up apparently and then left. It was a whole thing. Um, this is a funny story. His mom showed up. His from what I found out later on, his mom showed up, and not because she was worried about him fighting, because I think he had like an assignment to or something for school, and she took him from the gym. So it was in, and I remember like when they told me, I'm like, really? And apparently it was a whole thing, but very funny. And there's a true story actually. Um, very funny. Um, and I remember my mom was like, well, maybe I should take a page out of her book. I'm like, don't even get started. But I did end up fighting the same person, 3 weeks later. But it was, I've been in that position, where Aaron Blanchfield is, where like, you're sitting there, you're about to fight, and then someone goes, hey, fights off. And you're like, oh, shit. I'm gonna shout out our good friend Kyle Vareb, Muay Thai expert over here. Shout out to you, Kyle. Vile Kyle Vareb is what we call him. He loves Muay Thai. There's probably not a bigger Super Lek or Raw Tang or all those Muay Thai legends. There's not a bigger fan Then our boy Kyle, he loves those guys. Um, and I forgot I was gonna mention him about. Um, was I gonna? I was, I forgot I was gonna say about you, Kyle, but there's a shout out. Yeah. So I honestly just that thought left me. Happens all the time. Never happens when I'm not recording. Happens when I'm recording. Always just goes. So yeah, so that was the main event. It got scrapped, and so afterwards, Aaron Blanchfield, she was at the official post fight presser, and she's like, yeah, it was very unprofessional. I'm not gonna fight her. And obviously, there's nothing that Barber can do about seizures, but you know, from someone who's dealt with someone uh who has epilepsy, it's there are things that that can be done prior to make sure you don't have those. They're not entirely completely unavoidable. That's a huge, that's a huge falsehood. But you still can, take measures to make sure you don't have them. Um, you know, Obviously some doctors will say, well, she should have been training or something, and that's true. But it's clear that based on other reports that there were other medical stuff. The fact that she missed weight is is a big key for me. She missed weight and she looked really bad missing weight. And when a fighter misses weight from someone, they used to cut. I think my worst cut was I was cut to 185 and I was 203 like 3 weeks out. I think the week of the fight I was like 193, so I had about actually it was 4 days before the fight. I was 193 and I had to cut about 70 more pounds because I think I could be at 186, but um, uh, this amateur said, it's not like my purse is getting taxed, and I don't have no fight purse. I'm an amateur, but I remember like there was some allowance to something, but yeah, I've been there, and cutting weight sucks, and when you're in that super sucked out dehydrated state, you're not like human really. You're just a husk of a corpse and a body. It feels so weird. To anyone that's cut weight, you understand what I'm talking about. It's a total out of body experience. And yeah, so there's that big factor with this fight that she missed weight, she didn't look good, bunch of different factors going on with the whole thing. And basically we come to the point where the fight was scrapped and there's no main event. Now, what the UFC just did is just said, well, the main event was the fast fight between Mateusz Gamrot and Ludwig Klein. So that technically became the post main event after the fight. And you know what is what it is. It sucks. These things do happen, but I don't really remember in recent history, especially since the especially since the especially since the Reebok deal and the Fox deal, which for me and Isaiah, those are kind of the 2 points. There's a great documentary by Felix Leiterman called I think it's called Into the Loneliness or something like that. It's on Secret Base. If you guys know that, it's a sports documentary type channel. Please go watch that video. It's called Into the Loneliness. No, Into the Darkness or Loneliness. I don't know what it is, but please go watch that video. It's a great documentary documenting, the start of fighting from the freaking samurai all the way to now. It's awesome. I see any mixed martial arts fan needs to watch that because it's so much history. It's great. It's one of the best MMA videos I've ever watched. To be honest with you. So basically, from the start of the Reebok deal, which I think was 2014, 2015, and then the Fox deal, which was 2011, that me and myself, I call that the it's not a merger, but it's the I guess I'd say the post Fox period, which was from 2011 to 2018. That was the Fox period, and then before that was just so post the Fox, I'll just call it assimilation or whatever, and then to ESPN, which was about 2011. But really, for me, things changed a lot for the Reebok deal in 2015. Because that's when everyone was, when they had pretty much thin iron uniforms, which I still think is one of the biggest mistakes the UFC's ever made because it pretty much made fighters. Now, yes, you did have guys back in 2010 fighting with shorts that said Condom Depot. Yes, that's not good for an audience, for a huge audience on a primetime show on ABC. I understand that. But it took away from the fighters being able to have massive amount of sponsorships, and now they have sponsorship limits. Once again, please go watch the video. Yeah, go watch the video I just mentioned. Into the Loneliness. It goes all over that stuff. But yeah, um, and since that, I guess they'll call it the Reebok merger or whatever, um, purchase, whatever it is. Well, just call it the Reebok deal. There's been, it's been hard fighters to, have sponsors, all this stuff, and some guys still do, obviously, but it's very limited for sure. It's definitely become more lax in, since COVID for sure, which is one of the benefits of COVID. It's allowed fighters to do other things because UFC can't do that anymore for all their stars. But I'm going back to Barber and Blanchfield. It's unfortunate this happened. It's fighting, and going back to my original point, dumb to why that I brought up the Fox deal and the Reebok deal is that was around the time that I became a fan. I became a true fan around like probably 2018, 2019. Um, it was actually post the Conor Khabib fight. I think I did watch that card. I didn't. I think I watched the main event at the time, but not the whole card. I think I was at someone's house. I think I watched it at the time, but I didn't watch the card. I think the first full card I watched was like 235, 237. I forgot the UFC number, but that was one time that I became a fan. But I was still kind of like a casual fan all the way back to days of 2012. So around GSP, he's one of the first fighters that got me into the sport. And John Jones as well. Rampage Jackson has been a massive favorite of mine. All those guys in that era. Um, and pretty much since that, the UFC deal with Fox and the Reebok deal, I can't really remember this sort of situation happening for a main event. Of course, fights in the prelims or even fights on main cards have had this happen before. This actually kind of happened a couple weeks ago with Rodolfo Bellato. He was supposed to fight Paul Craig, and then they're like, "Yeah, bro, you got herpes," and then he couldn't fight. And then he couldn't fight, because he had freaking herpes. Because he had freaking herpes. Once he had herpes, he couldn't fight. So, and it was the funniest thing about that whole thing is if you now I will never follow Alpha Bellato on any social media after that, but he posted a thing and he's like, "I'm so sorry, guys. I didn't know herpes I would make it so I couldn't fight." I'm like, this guy, dude. These I love the Brazilians. I have a bunch of Brazilian friends, but I want to shout. Sorry, guys. Fixing my hair. Let you know. There we go. Fix my hair. We're good. Um, but I love the Brazilians, man. But these guys, man, they just sometimes they have zero common sense about anything. But yeah, that's pretty much it on the what was supposed to be the main event. And then the rest of the card, let's just go over it, guys. It's really wasn't this honestly, and this is something I think I'll mention on the podcast this week, Friday. We're gonna try to do it live. I don't know. We'll see. But it will be video recorded for sure. One thing that I did want to mention to Isaiah, and we'll mention now, is I felt like, honestly, almost every card this year has been at worst, has been at worst above average. To the standards that me and Isaiah have, which are, very high hardcore fans. So it's easier for us to appreciate a card that a casual might think boring. So there's obviously that factor, to consider. But this was the first, like a fight night or pay-per-view card that I thought was like meh of the year. And yeah, it's June, but we're almost halfway for the year, and you have to have this. I mean, if I'm looking at all the UFC events, I can't really think of, I'm sure there were a couple fight nights that were, okay, but there was always some, pretty good knockouts and stuff on these This card, it was all right. In the first fight, you had Rayon dos Santos losing to what's her name? Alice Ardalan. She won by decision. Uh, Balaji Oki, he improves to 10-2. He fought this guy Mike Laswell. It was a decision fight. Uh, Now I want to go to the next fight. Jordan Levitt, who his nickname is the Monkey King, who will be known forever as the guy that Paddy Pimblett teabagged after he finished him. He can't escape that. Like unless he arrives his career, he's 29 and like goes on some Jorge run and then becomes like a title challenger. Besides the fact he is whoa, that wasn't good. Hold on. Whoops, that wasn't good. Uh, uh, I'm sorry, guys. That was not intentional right there. Okay, this thing stays still. All right, we're good. No, just what is going on with this thing? Okay, okay. I think we're good. Right, we're good. Whatever. Yeah, it's clear that like, I'm not very good at this whole editing thing. But yeah, uh, he is known as the guy that Paddy Pimblett teabagged. So, but he got a first round submission win over Kurt Hollabaugh, who's a pretty good tough fighter. It's funny, he fought at like UFC at like 150, and then was on the Ultimate Fighter. He had a win. Jordan Levitt got the submission first round. The next fight was two flyweights, Jafel Filio versus Alan Nascimento. So, Nascimento won by decision. Zach Reese, I'm coming off a huge knockout loss to Azamat Pokoyev, one of my favorite up and coming fighters right now. He won a third round decision against Dusko. Sorry, Dusko Todorovic, that guy. And then Ketlin Vieira, she got a decision over Macy Chowson. Dustin Jacoby, he had by far the best, by far the best, finish. And I think there was only, if I'm correct, I think there was only three finishes. Yeah, because Ramiz Brahimaj, he got a first round submission over Billy Ray Goff. Another hype job bites the dust. He got a submission by guillotine in the first round. But man, Dustin Jacoby, man, I want to give him a shout out. Everyone forgets, yes, he got knocked out by Pereira in kickboxing, but he fought Pereira in kickboxing. Only a few guys can say that, like Cesar Almeida, UFC guys. Cesar Almeida, obviously Izzy. So he got knocked out, but he still fought Pereira in kickboxing in his prime. And but yeah, it was a good knockout. It was funny because the guy he beat, Bruno Lopez, was 14-1. I think he's 32. And the whole broadcast are like, yeah, Bruno Lopez is a hot young prospect. Only he's 32. Now, I will shout out Miami Isaiah. We do have this thing that we've been working on. It's called the Top 20 Prospect List. It's a UFC prospect list. We will be going into more of that. He's going to make a video about the just an overall preview of the list and who we have on it right now. We will be changing it soon, but that is upcoming. But yeah, Bruno Lopez is not on the list. I didn't even know who he was until this fight, and he got knocked out. So it was a good win for Dustin Jacoby. And then in the main event, Matus Gamrot got another dominant win over Ludwig Klein. Yeah, I mean, Ludwig Klein's a decent fighter, but he hasn't fought anyone of any real note in the UFC. And then they just shot him to Gamrot, who you can love him or loathe him. He's a good fighter. I know he got dropped by Beneil, but he's overall a really solid, super well-rounded fighter. His striking has, I think, regressed a little bit, but his ground game's good. His clinch work is great. He's got pretty good leg kicks. He's a solid fighter. So it was a good solid for Gamrot. All right, so that was pretty much that fight night card. I know Isaiah will be going over the UFC 316 card. Obviously, we will be doing a full preview for the podcast this Friday. So that's going to do it, guys. My name is Jake, and thank you for watching this video. Subscribe. There's the logo up there. Yeah. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys. Peace.